There we go, everybody. So welcome to another Earlywork event. This one will be about something that's quite top of mind for a lot of people in Web3. So we'll be talking about GameFi and NFTs. Very, very exciting. So we'll be joined by Jack, who's old colleague actually, and also community member. He's sort of running Pylon Labs. I'll let him talk about what that is. And we're also joined by P, who's from Immutable, who's Immutable's had some good news today. So it is nice to actually celebrate with everyone here. Cool. So Jack, do you want to do a quick intro of yourself, and then I'll pass over to P as well?
Yeah, of course. No, thank you. Well, hi everyone. My name's Jack. I'm the CEO and founder of Pylon Labs. We're a venture investor and venture studio in NFT gaming. I've spent the last 12 months purely in gaming, and so from our perspective, I've also been a gamer my whole life, and it's really cool that being able to share the panel with someone like Pea as well from Immutable, an incredibly reputable company. For Pylon Labs, we like investing behind games which we think really tap into the cultural zeitgeist of society. I'm most interested in use cases where we can onboard more and more people into blockchain applications, and I'm sure Maria and I will talk a lot about that. We also build a lot of stuff in Web3, DAOs, product services, the whole spectrum there as well. It's really good to be here.
Awesome. Over to you, P.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm P. I'm the Global Head of Talent Acquisition and Talent Operations, bit of a mouthful. But basically we're a crypto technology company. So we've built the layer 2 protocol for NFTs. And we basically believe that everyone should have the same ownership rights in the real world as you do in the digital world. And we want to be the platform that people use NFTs. We also have a blockchain gaming studio. We've gone through some kind of incredible growth. We have gone from 30 people to 170, and we're looking to hire 300 plus over the next 12 months. I don't think we're going to hire that many people, but we're going to try. And we've just raised Series C funding. So there's a big party happening upstairs. Hopefully you won't hear everyone, but there is a DJ and lots of music going on. And we've just raised 280 million, and we're now valued at 3.5 billion. So we've 6x'd in, I think, 6 months. So yeah, lovely to be here and get to know you all.
Wow, that is a lot of zeros. So everyone, now that we know a bit about our guests, so we'll talk about, before we jump into the actual fun stuff, this person. If you have any questions that you want to ask Jack or P, I'm just going to drop a Slido link in the chat. So if everyone can jump on, you can ask any questions that you want. You can put your name on it, so I'll call you up to ask it at the end. You can also do it anonymously and upvote, downvote questions as well. So yeah, okay, so Jack, I'm gonna put you in the spotlight first. So you've gone from being a Sydney FC coach, which is a very interesting start, to being CEO at Generation Entrepreneur, and then doing deals at Finder. Can you talk a bit more about how you got started in Web3 and how you sort of found GameFi as the niche to focus on?
Yeah, that's a fascinating point. I mean, growing up in this generation, for context for those in the chat, I'm turning 24 this year. And so it's not, I don't come out here with a high degree of corporate experience or an esteemed CV. From my perspective, it's always been about following my interests. I mean, I used to play stuff like, I can name all of them, like RuneScape was a big one, StarCraft, League of Legends, FIFA, all Hearthstone, all of these different games kind of formulated my childhood. If you ask me before uni if I'd be in gaming, I wouldn't know, to be fair. The probable answer is no. I think what I made the jump into crypto in early 2017, late 2016, reading the Bitcoin white paper. From my perspective, blockchain, as much as it is about a technological revolution, it is one of social organization as much as it is about technology. It is about how culture shifts and how we think about our society. And from my perspective, I think about NFT gaming, and of course, the buzzword nowadays is how does this tier up into the metaverse? From my perspective, it is, we have a very distinct reality that we live. Is it true that as time progresses, we will increasingly be spending our time in virtual reality or metaverse reality, or whatever word that you want to use? My answer is yes. And from my perspective, gaming is one of those use cases which will be the first onboarding mechanism. when 10 years ago, when I was spending 15, 20 hours a day on RuneScape, that was unseen. But that brings me into the time now, which is I've seen what it was like 15 years ago. And if someone were to say to me, Jack, there'll be more and more people spending more and more of their time playing games, you can see it already in how society functions. And from my perspective, the answer is yes, in which case this is just one of the most intellectually challenging type industries to go down. And it was so early. People like Immutable as well will know that games around the world are just coming live. One interesting thing that I think is most exciting is indie game developers really have not had the chance to come to market as well as they have had now. If you look back 5, 6, 7 years ago, you had to be with a major publisher to have any degree of success, unless you were a guerrilla marketed indie game that got traction in a very special way. 99% of indie games probably shut down or just barely broke even. And so again, this is just one of the most exciting times. We invest across the game. We think of it as infrastructure, so things like Immutable, where networks and protocols that games build on. We think about the games themselves, and then we think about the actual monetization layer of NFTs, i.e. NFT marketplaces. We think about guilds as well. I actually co-founded a guild 6 months ago, and so from that perspective, it is just one of the most exciting times here. Didn't know that I'd end up here, but I think is where I'm going to be spending a majority of my time going forward.
Awesome. So I'm just going to go to a quick question in the chat. Were you more of a RuneScape person or a Club Penguin person?
Oh, RuneScape all day. RuneScape all day. Check out my Twitter at GameFi Mage, and you'll see it's just all RuneScape references. It's not even funny.
And I'm going to improvise a bit. So P, were you a big gamer when you were little? How did you sort of get started and get interested in the GameFi space?
Yeah, I wasn't, but my brother's quite famous in the gaming world. He worked on I think he was the lead person on Donkey Kong and some other games. And I basically joined because I was like, gaming's bigger than music and movies combined, due to take over sport. And I thought blockchain, crypto is going to be the future. So I thought if I have those two things on my CV, I'm going to bulletproof myself. And then since I've joined, I'm probably a bit more naturally interested in our Immutable X side. But we do play games on Fridays together and hang out.
Wow, sounds like Fridays at Immutable are to be. So Jack, you mentioned that sort of GameFi is really throwing the industry on its head. You don't really have to be with these big production companies to make a name for yourself as a developer. Can you elaborate a bit more about what else makes GameFi such an interesting space for you to look into?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, there's a few things. I'm going to answer that with how we think about investing in general. It is really true that today, and I'm going to double click back on my point on just my age and my background. Today, Web3 is one of those places where anyone can build. You can go join an incredible company like Immutable, and you can also start building incredible game experiences. And from that perspective, it is just one of those things where an incredible moment in time. And for all that are in here, it is one of those things where, I think on a day-to-day basis, I feel a deep sense of responsibility to make people understand the time that we're in. And so when I think about a game, really the two core factors that I look at are about, can they ship a game and do they care about the community? And if you can do those things in tandem, you will be successful. The real truth is that Web3 gaming is incredibly expansive. And if you build something, you will be able to monetize and you will be able to profit and be able to build a team and spend a lot of time on the project if you know how to ship and you can understand and deeply empathize with your community. One of the games that there's a lot of games in Australia coming to market. One of my favorites called The Red Village. They have done an incredible job. It's just 3 guys out of the eastern suburbs here who are just building something incredible. And to answer your question, Marina, it's like, that's incredibly compelling. The ability of a student to go to school for comp-sci and then be able to build and ship a product overnight and launch it to market, that's really cool. If I zoom back out, the main point about why Web3 gaming is a thing is purely based on digital ownership. When I thought about stuff like RuneScape, cutting wood and creating pickaxes when I mined, you grind for those moments, but I never got to see any financial return. And from that perspective, all that time was not wasted, but it was invested. But there was no real tangible ROI in the real world. Today, those assets can be owned and they can be traded, and there is fair value for those things. And the best Web2 example is something like CSGO, where you have skins that already have monetary buy and sell value, but you just can't trade it. From that perspective, Web3 has been about democratizing not only the ownership of digital assets, but also the actual buying and selling of those assets themselves. And that is a paradigm shift that is akin to when free-to-play gaming made such a big impact around a decade ago. It was just one natural evolution in gaming. It wasn't a step change. It was more just an evolution and iteration versus a complete shift in how the gaming ecosystem works. That's really what NFT gaming is really about.
Awesome. You dropped a couple of names there. Would you maybe tell us what your favorite project is? Give us a little bit of background on how it started, what you actually do in the game, and why you think it's so exciting.
Yeah, I mentioned the Red Village. When I spoke to them, they were building a game because they realized that in NFT gaming there wasn't a Diablo dark fantasy type game out yet, and for them it was just a natural market opportunity. And these were three guys out of the eastern suburbs again. They had no game dev experience, and they were just business people. And from this perspective, Web3 has enabled an incredible amount of capital organizations. They ended up hustling their ways into partnering with Virtual Human Studios, the founders there of Zedrun, and also Sandbox. They went live with the actual Twitter so I know they started in March last year. They probably went live around September, October. They did their first NFT drop, and they raised $2 million straight up like that. They were able, the reason why they were so incredible was less about, if you go on their Discord today, you will see that they are active every few hours. Their team, their core founding team, are there every few hours. When they make mistakes, which they will because they've never done this before, they own up to it. And from that perspective, Web3, if I zoom out a few layers all the way to the top, Web3 has been about building and transparency. It has been about, I, as a builder, want to do my best in shipping something that I believe in. I want the community to also join me on this journey. And from that perspective, I want them to contribute, but also I will own up to my flaws and the strengths that I have as well. And that is why they're so successful now. I know that they're in the middle of a capital raise. There's a few exciting things happening there. But even just so we're talking about Immutable as well, they've had some incredible games. I mean, Gods Unchained is similar to a Hearthstone experience from those who haven't seen it before. And it just looks like the future. It just looks like you're playing the future. So that's really rad as well. And so I think right now you find out Web3 developers, right now the people who are interested in NFT gaming, from my perspective, are Web3 natives who now realize that the use cases can apply to gaming. It's not gamers who are here saying that I love this experience already. Now, there are a few titles in Australia, especially in Australia, which are coming out with real AAA type experiences, i.e. Alluvium has made all the hype around here. There's a few other games. Australia has really outperformed. If I zoom out on a macro level, Australia has also outperformed and over-index on the gaming NFT ecosystem. We have the Immutable, we have Zedrun, the Virtual Human Studios team, we have Alluvium. There's a whole series of we've really done well, which I'm really proud of as well. Maybe that's why I like NFT gaming. It's because all the Aussies are here.
Fair enough. And broadly speaking, where do you see this going in the next 5 to 10 years? Where is the world heading in the gaming industry, and how does GameFi fit into it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to answer that in two stages. One is a macro thesis, and secondly, we'll refer to how games play in our lives. My view at the start was, I think about our investment strategy as just core thesis and worldview. From one of the core worldviews on why we believe in NFT gaming is because we believe that more people around the world will spend more time online in virtual experiences. I think that is just, and to me, it's not even a contrarian view. I think a lot of people understand, especially this generation. From that perspective, if more people spend more time online, how do you make the right bets to actually play into that thesis? And so from my perspective, that kind of ties down to the market sizing of gaming itself. And, I talk about gaming, and this conversation will talk about gaming, but really this is talking about virtual experiences as a whole. from that perspective, I think that more and more games will come to market on the supply side. That's interesting because this is, again, we spent a bit of time today talking about how empowering it is to be able to ship something in a short amount of time directly to your community. I hope there are no people from the game publishers here, but completely circumnavigating the game publishers. On the demand side, that's what's most interesting, which is, okay, is one game going to win? So is like, Axie Infinity is definitely the runaway #1 game in NFT gaming right now, just based on usage. From that perspective, do you believe that only one game will succeed? I don't think so. What we've seen in Web2 gaming that it is really about, you start thinking about how much time you spend online. Let's say right now you spend 1 or 2 hours in game. For most people, that is spread across a whole series of different titles. So what will happen is we'll spend more time online, that market will increase, which means that more games have the opportunity to also leverage that attention span. From that perspective, really what we're talking about is the attention economy again. It's like, where are people going to be spending their time? People spend it in music, in movies, in gaming. Gaming, obviously, as the interactive narrative is really interesting. The difference between music, TV shows and movies is that gaming you are a part of, and you're actively contributing to and impacting how it evolves. For music and movies, those are consumption activities. I'm more interested in interactive activities. And so from that perspective, I just think that we'll spend more time online, which means that games will have more opportunities to succeed. And so when we think about our investment strategy, it is, we don't believe that it is a winner take all. It is not a few game titles will hold 60, 70% of the market. It will be probably 50 to 100 titles holding less than 5% of the market. It just means that because there's high supply, people will be able to find what they're most interested by and be able to find where their tribe is. That's what this really is about as well. So I just think it's one of the most exciting things that we could be working on. But I think just to close as well, I spend a lot of time here, and I struggle with the whole process of Black Mirror as well. I think I'm interested in this space because I think it is incredibly empowering and exciting. But it is also those in our position where we have the ability to impact in this sector, to think about how do we positively affect society as well, and make sure that we don't stumble upon a world where it is much more dystopian than utopian. I will close at that, I think.
Wow, great ending to that question. So that was like a really nice little overview of what's happening, but in the interest of time, I'm going to have to move on to talk about other things. But to everyone in the audience, if you have any other questions for Jack, please drop them in the Slido, because we do have time in the end for like audience Q&A. So anything you want to like double click on, please drop the question there and we'll like go top down. So Pea, I'd love to go to you and sort of talk about how young people can really make a career in this space. It does feel like something that's very difficult to break into, but I think Jack is like a great example of someone who's been able to go like full time on this. So before we dive into that, please tell us a bit more about like how you found Immutable. You alluded that your brother's really into gaming, but how did you find yourself in this space?
It was actually by chance. I interviewed with our CEO and pretty much fell in love, and I was like, I've got to work at this company. And I joined, and they said, you're going to be head of talent, but it'll take 2 years, and it'll just be, you only hire 30 people a year, it'll be quite quiet. I thought, great. And then joined and quickly realized that wasn't true. And I think I hired 80 people and then realized I was like, I need a team. So I now have a team of 13. But yeah, I basically joined. I really love the founders, if I'm honest. They're amazing, humble people. They're so down to earth. They're just like you and I. They'll be partying with everyone at the end of the night. They're just good people. So, and I just believed in the mission, similar to Jack. Like, why is it that like a Facebook like owns all of our data and it's not truly decentralized? And they kind of talk about that mission a lot when we're hiring. It's like, what are we doing for the good of the world? And we're going to be hopefully one of the leading companies in this space. We need to make sure that we're setting people up for success and not taking advantage of them. We even do that with our customers. Like, there's so many things that we could announce. Like we launched our token and we made $1 billion in 24 hours. We did one post about it and that was it, because we don't actually care. We want to make sure that what we're building is good for the community. And that's like same with Jack. Like, the community is so important to us. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. To loop back in, joined because I believed in the company mission, and in my opinion, this is the most attractive company in Australia at the moment. And I just think, yeah, I just kind of believe that we were gonna make it, and we're kind of have been doing that so far.
Awesome. And yeah, wow, hired a lot of people and lots more to come by the looks of it. So on that note, what sort of like roles or sort of skills are you seeing that would make like a really attractive candidate for something like Immutable?
Okay, I'll probably, there's a few key areas that we don't have enough talent for in these areas. So there's Solidity engineers, software engineers as a whole, technical product managers and product managers, marketing, and in particular community. So as Jack said, communities in gaming and crypto is the most important part of your business. We've got Guild of Guardians, which is one of our games. We haven't even released the game yet. We've got 500,000 people who are registered, and they've bought things within the game. They know it's going to be released soon. So those are the kind of the I think I said 6 there areas that if you're looking to get in, I know, in my opinion, that's where we don't have enough skill set, especially in Australia. Not sure if this is going out global, but that's where we're lacking. So if you're a software engineer, even if it's, there's loads of Solidity courses you can do, doing a Solidity project, and a software engineer who, have a look at the tech stack. We've actually just posted an article today about this, about what we do, but having some side projects. And in particular for us, because we're a technical company, like traditional PMs don't necessarily suit us. We're looking for more of a technical PM. And yeah, then marketing, in terms of traditional marketing just doesn't work in Web3. So you need to market a completely different way and to a different kind of generation of people often. So they're the kind of key areas that if you're looking to get into, I would explore. Do you want me to go a bit deeper on like tips or?
Yeah, no, sure thing. That was actually going to be one of my next questions.
Okay, cool. So if you don't have a clue about what this space is and you're interested, I'd recommend signing up to these 2 things. Let me put them in the chat box. So Bankless, I'm hoping you've all heard of that. And then DeFi Weekly, I find just those 2 newsletters pretty helpful. There's a long list of other ones depending on what you're more interested in. So just kind of listen to some podcasts. I try and listen to one podcast at least a week, just so I'm up to date in the area. Because honestly, even if I interview someone and they say they're crypto native, I'd never believe them because no one is, and it's changing so much and evolving. I think to be successful, to work at Immutable in particular, you have to have that kind of mindset that you want to learn and you're curious, because you need to have that in Web3, because things change literally sometimes hourly in this space. So I'd sign up to them. I'd also try and buy an NFT, try and see, maybe like use OpenSea, use Immutable X, whatever company you're interested in going to work at, try their product, try their game, and mention that in your application. And then I can go a bit deeper on like actual tips if you want as well.
Cool. Maybe we'll park that for a second because I think there's really interesting points there. In particular, I think I completely agree. Getting hands-on is probably one of the best ways to get started. Yeah, I think a lot of us might have some random NFTs in the wallet. I know I do, and not all of them are going to be amazing flips, but it's more the experience of actually just seeing what that is like, seeing what a Discord community is like. I think a really interesting point you mentioned, P, was about how Web2 PMs or Web2 marketers might not actually be a good fit for Web3. So can you talk a little bit about like what the differences are and what sort of new skills you should be looking at if you want to move into Web3? Yeah.
This is very much with my Immutable lens, so other companies will be different. But for us, because we're building the back end for NFT games and marketplaces, so you'll be, I don't know, we do definitely want people in Web 2, but it's just a different kind of experience. So you need some of the interview questions that we ask around APIs and what the infrastructure is and how you've integrated with, I don't know, AWS or whatever it is. I haven't been actually recruiting PMs for a while, so I'm brain dumping here. But yeah, basically, you need to understand the product really well, and you not necessarily that not necessarily the fundamentals of product management, but the actual product. And we find that technical PMs or software engineers that have gone into product managers do really well here, because yeah, it is a complex product what we do.
Cool. Yeah, I think brushing up on some of the, as I call it, computer whispering skills is something that would benefit a lot of PMs as well. And I think on the marketing front as well, you know, it's less about Facebook ads, but rather about community building. So I think Web3 really has a different definition to some of these roles that we've like sort of come to be accustomed to. So yeah. I think another like part of this equation that's really interesting, and maybe Jack, you can jump into this too, is the actual like the builders of Web3. So there might be a lot of like, I know, budding software engineers or budding like PMs who actually want to become like builders of this space. So what sort of advice would you give to this audience?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it's, you know, Web3 will favor those who are able to create 0 to 1. You know, my perspective is that those who can ship and have the capability to ship have a very asymmetric advantage. And so your objective is, if you believe in something that should be created in the world, Web3 has allowed you the best opportunity to do so. And what, you know, in terms of actual like advice, I don't think, like, what I want to offer is encouragement, because I think from this perspective is, I think, you know, I view my work in crypto and Web3 and blockchain in the viewpoint of society and how our society should function. From my perspective, there's going to be people in this group who are looking at different opportunities that they're excited by. My only encouragement is ship. There's literally no other answer. It's like, if you believe and have conviction in something and you think that you should do something, you have to do it. From my perspective, and Marina knows as well, I have I have a very ambitious view on things. And from my perspective, it's like, the world needs more people building things. If you have an idea, you should do it. And if you don't feel prepared just yet, go work at somewhere until you have the capacity to do so. But from that perspective, Web3 has allowed, this is why, just on a personal perspective, why I was running a venture fund before starting Pylon Labs. From my perspective, I felt that I had a very distinctive worldview, and I wanted to create things which supported that worldview. And for those in this chat, a lot of people here are incredibly talented people. And I encourage you to really evaluate whether you have the, and even nowadays as well, actually, the best advice is you don't even need to quit jobs nowadays to ship stuff. You don't need to actually set up a LLC or a P2 Ltd here to start building. And from that perspective, I think just one of those exciting moments where do it as a side project until you start making money. And then once you build it to a point where people are actively loving it and using it in the old YC principles of ship things that people really love, then quit your job, then talk, then raise money, then try to figure out how you make this super serious. But yeah, I think that's probably really important to know.
Okay, what do you reckon? What would you tell builders in the space, especially people who might still be in uni or maybe thinking about like a career transition?
I mean, 100% go for it. I think this is the future. And I think if you don't get in this space, you're going to kind of like pinch yourself in 10 years when everyone's asking for these skills. But I agree with Jack. I think you don't necessarily have to even work in a crypto company. There's so much you can do online now, and you can kind of do in the communities. You can do it in Reddit, Discord, Reddit, and yeah, you can even build an Immutable X, for example. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for that.
Awesome. I think another pathway that I've personally seen a lot in some of the Discords is just simply like putting a hand up to contribute to a project. A lot of people who are community managers or maybe people who help with content have been original fans of a project, and they've been able to sort of bring themselves up to become a contributor for a project. So yeah.
We've hired a few people that way, which has been really great.
Great example right there. Awesome. So I think it is time for some audience Q&A, which should be fun. Got lots of questions here, which is great to see. But yeah, last chance for everyone. I'm just going to drop the link once more in case you guys want to drop in another question or vote one. So I'm just gonna take the spotlight off everybody so you can see everyone's faces. Hang on, gotta get rid of mine. Oh no, how do I do this? Hang on, I'll fix it. Hang on, move spotlight. There we go. I think we should see everybody now. Okay, so I'm just gonna.
Your face is still there, Marina.
Oh, who? Me?
Yeah.
Are you on speaker view or gallery view?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, cool. If you want to see everyone's faces and not mine, would recommend top right corner view, gallery view. So yes. Cool, let's just go top to bottom. First one from Anonymous, so I guess I'll read it out. Besides staking, governance, in-game NFTs, e.g. skins, what other DeFi use cases / functionalities will emerge in the next 5 to 10 years within the gaming industry? I feel like that might be a Jack question.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of those use cases are going to happen. I mean, I'm really interested in cross-chain lending. I think that's going to be really important as I think more games, you realize that games are chain agnostic. They need to be offered wherever the users are, in which case your assets need to be chain agnostic. I think that's really interesting, bucket one. Bucket two is then it's about providing liquidity as well. How do if I'm a game creator, I have all these assets that might be spread across that people might be holding, but not actively using. How do I give them an opportunity to lend those assets? And really, those are DeFi applications, right? We're talking about just very basic DeFi, like lending protocols and yield generating protocols. How can one of the interesting things that we've been building as well is lending assets to guilds. Because essentially what happens is you lend, for example, an axie to a guild. That guild actually operates those axies for you, in which case you're earning yield on an asset that you might not be actively using, which is fascinating. And so, I mean, GameFi, if I zoom back out, GameFi is DeFi coming to gaming. From that perspective, every DeFi application, there probably is a use case in gaming. Stuff that I'm talking about now, stuff that was just mentioned, there'll be more, and I'm really excited for it.
Awesome. Think next question from P. Oh, this one's for P. So how is talent acquisition changing in Web3? How do you compete with the hundreds of remote companies paying 100K USD junior salaries?
Good question. We're really fortunate, I think, because we've got such a good culture and people like working here. So, you know, out of 110 people that I've hired, 3 haven't worked out. It's so rare that we make a wrong hire and people enjoy working here. So I think we can lean on that a lot, where that people enjoy working here, they want to stay. So we've got a good culture, and we do pay very well. So we pay in the 90th percentile in tech. I've had 5 pay increases since I've been here. That's not just me. That's not rare. People get rewarded if you come here. You don't necessarily have to wait for 2 years to get a pay increase. So I think we adapt. Like, we don't do things for the sake of things, and we try not to have too many processes. We have guidelines and structure, but not too many, so that it's restrictive and it can't help us hire in speed. And then, yeah, we do pay top of the market, but I think we actually have probably too much at the moment, a high number of, like, we've gone from having maybe 300 applications last year a week to 4,000 at the moment. So we're struggling to keep up with the demand currently.
Makes sense. Lots of people who want to work at Immutable from what I've seen, and lots of people to hire. Oh, this one's from D-Glass. So maybe if you want to camera off and unmute, if you want to not dox yourself, but feel free to also camera on and ask. Go for it.
Yeah, sure. What was my question? I actually forgot.
Okay. Do you think old game publishers, studios have a shot at competing? And you can elaborate.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I saw that, like, the head of gaming at YouTube quit his job to join as the CEO of Polygon Studios, right? So there's this whole new wave of kind of, I don't know, maybe Web3 friendly game studios popping up. Like Immutable X also has Gods Unchained. So yeah, I'm keen to get both your guys' thoughts on whether you think the old game publishers like Activision or now Microsoft, Amazon, they seem like they own everything, if they're going to have a chance, or if Immutable will take the win and Polygon.
I might jump in first and then Jack can finish off. I don't think they'll win in the long term. I think it's pretty evident, like, I can't discuss everyone that we're speaking to, but Tencent, one of our main investors this round, and that's where their first NFT investment. So I think that like it's coming. Will people still be interested in other games? Yes, but I think I just don't understand it. Like, why would you buy something within a game that you don't own? And I think it was 200 billion was spent last year on that. People don't own those items. So for me, I think people are going to wake up and realize this isn't fair. I should be able to own them and trade them, and you should be able to play and earn. I just think it's a bit of a shift that I think will kind of come gradually. And obviously I'm rooting for Immutable to win. But also the players, like I think players deserve to have those that ownership. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, from my perspective, I'm a big fan of just studying corporate strategy. When you have technology shift, the advantage should always be with the incumbents. They have all the distribution, they have all the users. When we think about the question of, on the other side, you have startups which are able to adapt technological change much faster. And so they are able to build ground up much faster as well. And so really, your bet is whether you believe that game studios in their ability to iterate to a future where is Web3 enabled is going to be faster than startups eventually building up to the place of being an incumbent. From that perspective, you can look at someone like MySpace and Facebook. MySpace was the incumbent, but you have someone like Facebook, which slowly but steadily outbuilt them, got more users than them. Eventually, they became the incumbent. From that perspective, I mean, my sit on the fence answer is that I believe that both will win. From that perspective, though, if you think about someone like, if we really double click on, let's say, Fortnite, it is not in their interest to introduce, I don't know, Bitcoin enabled transactions. Can you imagine the uproar that would happen when Timmy goes to his mom and says, "Mom, I'm gonna buy Bitcoin to buy my new to get membership on Fortnite"? It's like, that is an unnecessary risk. The question for these game studios is how quickly can they, either you iterate the current titles to becoming Web3 native, i.e. Fortnite, into having crypto native functionality, or you just build a game studio from the ground up. What I'm most excited by is that I like David and Goliath situations. And so I like startups who are building really from the grassroots and with Web3 principles in mind. And my biased bet is I'd like to invest behind those assets versus investing in incumbents, because I think they're slow and boring, and the future is much more exciting without them, ideally. I like efficient markets, so maybe that's the thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, great answers. I was listening to a podcast and it said usually incumbents are right for a very long amount of time, and then they get complacent, and then it happens all of a sudden, and then before they realize they are the incumbents. So yeah,
game over.
Exactly. Next question. Sorry, I'm just going to scroll a bit. Oh, another one for Jack. So first of all, incredible intro, Jack. Not from me, but from this person. What do you think is the biggest challenge in introducing NFT, Web3 crypto gaming to the masses and getting the rest on board?
I think right now, gamers have a very, like, what is this blockchain stuff? It feels like it is. I think gamers have always had a culture of being anti-establishment, being anti where the wind is blowing. And so from that perspective, there's always been that garage vibe of gamers. Like, they feel like they're on a different side of history. From that perspective, I think that's why gamers have not been as interested in where the hype is in NFTs. But for me, you know, in the context of my personal view on Web3, I spend a lot of my time trying to figure out what we need in Web3. And one of the things that we're building is something called Emergent DAO, which is a community for NFT gamers to discover and discuss new games. From that perspective, right, why we created that was because right now there is no home for the NFT gamer to really share insights and to learn from other people. But you look at Web2 gaming, it is so much about the sharing of passion and discussing lore and meta strategy and making money, that it just doesn't exist in Web3 at the moment. And I think that's a great example of, man, there's so many opportunities nowadays. You know, when I zoom back out, we could go down and index all the high priority items that need to be fixed in NFT gaming. Really, for the challenge in this chat is going to be I love inefficient markets. We are so early in NFT gaming that problems are everywhere, which again favors the builder. If you can actually identify those opportunities and build towards use cases that customers want, you're going to win. And so from that perspective, it's like, I love it. And so there's a whole series of different challenges in terms of introducing NFTs. I'm excited by essentially onboarding the next 100 million users onto NFT gaming. And I think it's going to take more and more builders building, and people like Pea and the crew at Immutable, who are just doing so much for education and getting people on board with what digital ownership looks like in this virtual world. So there's a few, it's good. Yeah, there's a few things there.
Yeah. Pea, what do you reckon, as someone who's pretty like deep in the space as well? Oh, you're on mute.
Do you mind repeating the question for me?
Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest challenge in introducing NFT, Web3, crypto gaming to the masses and getting the rest on board?
Oh, I don't know if I can add any more to what Jack said. I pretty much agree with everything that he mentioned.
Totally cool. That means time for 4 questions. So this, I think, top one is from the North. If you want to unmute yourself, ask a question. Oh, you've got a few, so maybe pick one.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So my question is around, in general, around the business models. Like, we are seeing that gaming is one of the first industries being transformed by this play to earn model. Like, are there any other industries being transformed where you can like use proof of attendance or proof of your contribution to the system or the industry? Like, for example, developers, they don't make much. It's the VCs who take away most of the bulk of their contribution. Are there any business model changes that you see happening? That's one of first question. And second question that I had is, does distribution come before ownership? Like, if you see music NFTs or something, they still need the distribution from labels or the distributors before they can actually monetize their community. So those are my 2 questions.
Cool. Let's go first question first. So I think is how do we see like business models changing with like GameFi?
Yeah, I think that it sounded like it was beyond gaming. And from my perspective, if you really go first principles on what NFTs are, it's about, and really it's not even NFTs, it's about tokenization as well. Web3 has introduced shared community ownership. What does that mean? It just means that how can businesses and organizations work with their customers and community to progress more than they did in Web 2. And from that perspective, I mean, we think about gaming, that's one way, which is if I gave my players ownership into those assets that they bloody worked for, I think that they're going to commit more time and spend more money, play more tournaments, get more buddies involved, in which case that's really cool. And so I think one of the most interesting use cases that I see now is the creator economy, which is there are more and more people becoming creators, i.e. TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Discord, whatever it might be. And NFTs will increasingly be a membership tool for them to monetize on top of their audiences. You know, today, Web2, Patreon is probably your best example of a membership club where you pay monthly to get a special access and videos or whatever it might be. But at the high level, it's, I am a creator, I'm building stuff for my audience. How can I give them shared ownership in what I'm building? If I zoom out, the whole thesis on Web3 has always been about, for me, the creator economy, which is as people more and more commercialize individual brands, they will need more and more tools for them to monetize and support what they're doing. And so one great use case is the music industry. And I have I'm very incensed about like how bands and artists are treated. I mean, we're talking about loans that are collateralized on perpetual like income, where you get 100K and you owe 50% of all royalties in perpetuity going forward. That is such a incredibly egregious type business model that I think that there are, if you leverage NFTs and, for example, you mint NFTs to raise money for your tour around Australia, and you completely bypass the actual publishers themselves, I think that is an incredibly empowering future that, again, Web3 is about targeting inefficiency. You don't need these middlemen because they really don't contribute too much. From that perspective, how do you build a community and really help them help you is what this is really about. So I think that from my perspective, creator economy is the top use case that we need to pursue. Gaming is one of them, music is another one. I have a background in sports, and so I think on a fan club engagement level, I think it's quite interesting. tokenizing fan engagement, membership. I think that's fascinating as well. There's a few different things there.
Awesome. I think we have time for maybe like 2 more questions. So this one kind of goes a little bit back to a previous question we had, and it's how are traditional gaming incumbents thinking about adopting blockchain/Web3 into their offerings? I think we've seen it be like quite a polarizing sort of topic. Some game studios love it, some of the players hate it. So yeah, what are some of the things that these incumbents are doing to adopt Web3 into their offerings?
I'm happy to go. I think you'll find two buckets. And again, these questions aren't too overly complex to me. You are either adopting or you're not. You're either leaning in or you're not. And so I'm not going to mention publishers themselves, but I think there are publishers which are actively investing behind the space, i.e. investing in different titles and really trying to understand and be part of the gaming ecosystem. They will win. Those who don't will be left behind, and that's fine. From that perspective, history has shown us that those who adapt continue to adapt and win, and those who don't just simply should end up in the annals of history. I have a very distinct view on how business works. And so from my perspective, it's like, you either do it or you don't. You either lean into change or you don't. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think what I'd love for these game studios to do, I mean, I was a big fan of EA and FIFA. I mean, if you just introduce NFT ownership, I'd probably keep playing. I love that. Can you imagine buying and selling Ronaldo? That'd be so sick. But they won't. And again, that's fine. That's how technology change works. And from my point of view, you can just look back into history and see how change really plays out over time. So.
Hey, what do you reckon? Any chatter about in the Immutable team about what's happening?
So much chatter. We feel quite passionately about this. I think we can understand why, some people are a bit skeptical. I think that's just because gamers have been kind of sold things before and it hasn't worked out. But for us, yeah, we believe this is for the good and it's going to have mainstream adoption. Similar to Jack, we just think it's going to take time for people to come on board, and you need to build good games. It's basically down to that. We need to build more than a good game, and a really cool and amazing user experience, and that will grab people first. And that's why, for us, that's what we want to make sure that the games that we bring, no offense to Axie, but we don't think it's the best game in the world. We want to build a game that people love. Our Guild of Guardians game I'm particularly excited about, and I think that's how you'll hook people in, is get them in on the game and then show them the upside with the kind of the new way of gaming.
Great answers. I think we'll go with a wholesome question as a last one. This one's coming from Anonymous. So, hey, Jack and P, what are your favorite open source Web3 side projects? P, maybe do you want to go first?
Cool. I'll go first. Some of mine are a bit underground, to be honest. So I've got a few in to do with women and women in crypto and women in NFTs. And then I have quite a random one. My husband will kill me because it's his. I've forgotten the name of it and he'll absolutely kill me, but it's like a wrestling NFT one. And at the moment I'm helping him with his pitch and sharing it with a few of our members here. And then I do this is actually mainstream now, but Doodles, more because I interviewed one of the people that work there and I really liked him and we stayed in touch and they've done so well.
Potentially some alpha drop for you right there. We might include some of the links in an event wrap up we do after so people can check it out for themselves. But Jack, what do you reckon?
Oh man, P mentioned inclusion in Web3. I mean, from my perspective, I'm like, yeah, one of my favorite projects is World of Women. And I think from that perspective, it's, man, I spend so much time in crypto and it's like, oh God, the amount of, it's a very distinct type of profile who have early adopted into crypto. And I'd like that to expand is my point of view. So that's one. I mean, there's a whole derivative set in NFT collections focused on inclusion. I think even in Australia, I mean, Fortune Friends Club was really cool over here as well. That was a cool drop. I mean, that's the NFT collection side. I I know that there's, I think someone in the chat is also building NFT earn.xyz, which is really cool. Again, from my perspective, this is, man, all the power to the builder. If you go out and venture into the unknown and just ship something that you're super passionate about, you're gonna win. And so I am a #1 fan of those type of people. Amazing. So that's my shout out. It's for those. It's for builders. It's not a project.
I like it.
It's very wholesome.
Very wholesome.
For you, Marina. This is super wholesome. I got you.
All right. I think let's end the questions there, but I did want to leave some time for both of you to plug or shout out anything. So maybe Pea, over to you. What would you like to share with the audience? Okay,
cool. Okay, we're going to be hiring 300 to 400 people over this year. We won't make it, so help us. We're not going to advertise all those roles because we find that we kind of don't need to as well, and we kind of do like to actively headhunt. So if you see a role, if you go on the website and you just don't see a role that's suitable for you, send me a message on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. Exactly 300 mil for 300 roles. So yeah, don't worry about the roles basically, and just if you're interested in the space, drop me a message. Someone's question was like, how do you get in? If you don't have to be an engineer. We're hiring across every single department you can think of: people, talent, marketing, finance. So yeah, just kind of follow us on LinkedIn. That's probably where we're most active, and then on Twitter as well.
Awesome. Maybe Pea, if you want to drop like your LinkedIn or your Twitter in the chat so people can.
Amazing. I'll do it now.
That'd be awesome. Jack, over to you. What do you want to share with the audience?
Let me also share my Twitter. Please chuck us a follow. I'm just kidding. So from my perspective, I started off Pylon Labs with the core intention of helping developers and builders come to market. And so if there's anyone building a project just in general, I think Web3 has really democratized access to people themselves, and people are much more willing to help others nowadays as well. And I think from my perspective, I'm super keen to just talk to people and what they're interested in, and hopefully be of help and share my views. And I'm also very connected in terms of just across the whole Web3 space, and especially for people who are looking for roles in some of the top projects in the space as well. Please reach out. I think there's probably, the real truth is that Web3 projects, especially people like Immutable, are just looking for talent. Like, this is just one of those times where good people will always find opportunities. And so I love to have that conversation with people as well. One of the key projects that we're building, I mentioned before, is Emergent DAO, which is actually going live next week. It's for us, we're trying to create the NFT, the home for the NFT gamer, where they can come in and really learn and discuss and really be part of the next generation in gaming. And so from my perspective, if you're interested in that type of thematic, I love to talk with developers, community managers, designers, and really there's, again, I come at this position as a builder as well. It's like I just want people who are passionate about what they do. And from that perspective, I know that there's opportunities there. And so, yeah, feel free. My Twitter is GameFi Mage. And yeah, thank you everyone as well for your time.
Awesome. I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you once again, Jack and Pea, for joining us and for sharing all of your stories and all your insights with the community. I'm sure everyone has loved it. So yeah, hit those guys up on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever works for you guys, and we'll catch you all later.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.